Like imagine, as you said, Wesley now arranges a few games in St. Louis with some guys who are like 2,400, or not St. Louis. I don't want to say St. Louis, but in some city, it doesn't matter where in the U.S. with some American 2,400s, and then suddenly some other player comes out. Like Anish also has a chance. Anish organizes a quadruple round robin tournament last minute, and you just have a circus. It's just like a pure circus.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the C Squared podcast. A lot of things have been happening since we've last chatted with each other. We've had some vlogs from Toronto and some content from Toronto, from the Champions Chess Tour, but a lot of things have changed in the chess world, and we will be covering all of those, and we will be giving you our impressions about what transpired in the land of chess in the last couple of weeks. Fabi, how's it going, man?
It's going well. It's it's been, I haven't weighed in on anything, but it's been interesting to watch everything from the sidelines. The
Absolutely
final
insane.
scramble. I kind of expected the scramble to happen. I mean, I was making some jokes, right? Someone's gonna arrange some last minute tournament. I don't know if I like made this joke on the podcast or just maybe offhand or something, but it was pretty clear this could always happen. So yeah, it like whenever you have one rating list, it's always possible. And then the question is like, do we think it's weird or not that some last minute tournaments happen? Everyone's going to have their own opinion about it,
Yeah.
but it's better that anyway, we'll get into it. But it's of course, it was clear that something like this was very likely to happen.
In fact, there were so many things that played into this whole scenario coming to life. First of all, it was Hikaru qualifying through the Grand Swiss. That was slightly unexpected. Not necessarily unexpected, but we weren't really taking that too much into consideration. But he did qualify. That emptied a rating spot, and then Alireza looked like he's completely out unless he does well in the Sinquefield Cup. But obviously, we also understood that there's the possibility of potentially some last-minute tournaments. And there was also the other race that was going on at the same time between Gukesh and Anish. Anish also playing in the Sinquefield Cup and potentially, I don't think he needed necessarily a super good result, but a good result would have given him a bit of a push. At the same time, he did not do super well at the Sinquefield Cup, so that didn't really help. And at that point, it became clear that there might be some instances where Gukesh is going to actually try until the last minute. And he did so in December, at the beginning of December at the London Chess Classics. He was not successful. He had to win that one outright. He did not. Didn't even get close in that one. Mickey Adams won it.
You could argue I mean, it was down to the last round, right?
Yes, but in
Or
the last round, not really, because Mickey Adams had to lose with, I think, the
oh
white
yeah,
pieces
he had
against
to beat Hans. Hmm.
Royal, Shreyas
Yeah, yeah.
Royal, which
No,
was
I just
quite an
remembered that
unlikely event.
there was still a possibility, but the possibility was that not only did he have to beat Hans, Gukesh that is, but also Mickey had to lose. So the
Yes,
possibility was unlikely. You could argue on both directions, but more so that Mickey, definitely he had a chance to beat Hans, although he did lose the game
yes,
pretty badly. I have to say, Hans really destroyed him, even though Hans was worse out of the opening. But also, like it wouldn't have mattered. Mickey was never losing to Royal, although Royal is obviously a really
he's
talented
good.
player.
He's good. Yeah.
But okay, he's still not Mickey's level, and Mickey's a super solid guy. Um, I mean, I know Mickey pretty well. We played. He was actually the first Super Grandmaster I played in 2007. So I
Really.
was 14 at the time because it was in January. I was 14 in Gibraltar.
Hmm.
I think I played him in the second round. First round, I beat some guy, lower rated player. I was 24.92. Second round, I played white against Mickey. First 2,700 plus, and not only that, but Mickey has actually been like top three in the world at some point in his career. So he's legitimately one of the best players of his generation.
He is.
And
He
he just
truly is.
destroyed me. Like it was not even close. He destroyed me from the opening with black. I had no understanding of the opening, no understanding of the middle game. He just outclassed me completely. So that was my first experience against a top player. Anyway, Mickey is now at this point semi-retired. He's in his 50s. He's still a very good player, but he's not, of course, the level that he used to be. But still, he had a great tournament. He won London.
Hmm. He actually
He
had a great
really,
year. He became the world senior champion as well.
yeah, I have to say, that's like in the World Senior Championship. I assume he's like such a heavy favorite. I mean,
Yes, yes.
um, also there's two World Senior Championships, right? Over 50 and over 65. I guess he played the one over 50.
Hmm.
But uh, yeah, of course, I mean he's definitely not over 65. So he played the one over 50. Uh, but I can't imagine who else would be near his level in that. Who would actually be playing? Because of course Vishy could play, Gelfand could play, um, but those guys are not playing. So Mickey is going to be the heavy favorite.
There's definitely an element of class with Mickey. Every time I was watching his games, you could sense the class. He's just such a classy player. He can squeeze water out of stone. It reminds me very much of Magnus's style at times as well. And I know there's very specific openings in which he excels. Also, I think the Open Sicilian is one of them. You, by the way, worked with him, right?
Yeah.
In preparation
So we
for the
worked in
candidates.
2020. No. Yeah. So well, yeah, you mentioned the Open Sicilian. The English attack is named after several English players who, like Bishop E3 in the Sicilian.
Hmm.
For example, John Nunn, Michael Adams. Like these players were kind of central to popularizing the English attack, which is now arguably the main way to combat the Najdorf, maybe if not the main way, then one of the main ways for sure. So, yeah, you mentioned that. Like with players like Mickey, or you can pick other players like Vichy, even though he's no longer active, but still maintains like 2750 or so. Uh, these players will never get they'll never be bad players.
Yeah.
At some point, they'll no longer have motivation. They won't want to calculate during games. They won't care so much about the result because they've done everything that they want to do in their career, and especially with a guy like Vichy, who's world champion multiple times. But even without being, even without calculating properly and without having motivation, which are really integral factors in a chess player, they'll still be very strong. Just because they have, yeah, you said class. I mean, it's going to be the same way in 20 years with Magnus or with I don't want to say with me because I don't want to comment on myself, but with Magnus or with like Wesley or Hikaru, if these players are still playing, you can even see with Gary. I mean,
Oh, for sure.
Gary, he he's how old is he now? He was born in
I think he
63.
just turned 60 this year.
Yeah. So he just turned 60. He was born in 1963. He hasn't played professionally since 2005 when he retired after Linares 2005.
Hmm.
He has worked, but probably not at any sort of serious level for many, many years.
Hmm.
Certainly not for his own chess. He has only played some like rapid and blitz events, no classical chess. He routinely flags, like he just runs out of time in many of these events where he's playing.
Yeah.
But he's still a very tough opponent. The way you beat him is actually you don't really outplay him. I mean, sometimes you do, but more often than not, you beat him in a time scramble. He blunders, he gets nervous, he flags, things like that. So it's not because like we outclass him. If you just look at his games, he tends to start well in the tournament, in any tournament, where he's just playing as like an exhibition event or just as a casual event. And then eventually like tiredness or like nervousness, lack of practice, it kind of catches up to him and he has these lapses during the game, but not the kind that you're like, oh, this is not an amazing player. He's an amazing player who just is he's no longer professional. He's no
Well,
longer has that
it's even easy
kind of edge set.
to get the last to take the last tournament into consideration. Chess 9LX in St.
Mm-hmm.
Louis, he was leading after day one, and exactly as you painted out the picture, he fell in day 2 and 3, mostly due to the fact that he ran out of energy and he was flagging very often. We even discussed that during the podcast with him. I believe he was mentioning his game against Jeffrey, where he didn't play the move e5, which was a move in his style, a move that he would have played quite easily and quite quickly in previous years, right, when he was active. But at the same time, he understands that you can sense his class once again through his games, even now.
Yeah, and by the way, if like he had continued playing professionally up to today, so from 2005 for the last 18 years, if he had continued playing professionally, he would still be a very, very strong player. Now, it's hard to say how strong at 60, but for example, Korchnoi was a 2600 plus player into his 70s.
Hmm.
Like when I played Korchnoi in 2008 for the first time, he was 26, 20, 30, something like that. Um,
Wasn't he around 80?
I think he was in his 70s in 2008. I mean, I think he was born in 19, let me think,
Late
19,
70s, right?
1912 was he born? Let me check.
Let's see.
I mean, like Korchnoi is,
He was just
sorry,
short of turning
he was
80,
born,
actually.
he was born in 31. He was born in
79 year
31. No,
old when he won
yeah,
against him.
I was who I was thinking of when I said 1912. I was thinking of about Vinnik, I think, who was born in 1912, who of course is significantly older than Korchnoi.
Yes.
1911, he was born, Vinnik.
Hmm.
Anyway, so I mean, you could see it with players who, okay, Smyslov, for example, in his 60s was playing the final match of candidates against Garry Kasparov, 1983, I think. The winner played the World Championship match, which was Kasparov. But to get to the finals of candidates in your 60s, of course, it was a different time. I don't think this would happen today, but still, it's when players are really good, when players are like world class or best of their generation or best of all time, like Garry is obviously like arguably best of all time along with Magnus, that doesn't go away. And the same will go for players who are not quite at that. Like Mickey, obviously he's not Garry, but he is one of the best players of his generation and was number 3 in the world. And Vichy, one of the best players of all time for sure,
Yeah.
and so on. So anyway, we kind of veered a bit off topic, but I'm not surprised to see Mickey winning a tournament like this. It's not shocking. Maybe it's a bit of an upset, but it's not really a shock.
No, absolutely. Completely agree. So that the way we got to that subject is that was the first tournament, let's say, not necessarily organized for Gukesh, but that was his first opportunity to potentially overcome leapfrog Anish Giri in the Grand Swiss Grand FIDE points, Grand Point.
Yeah,
How do you? I keep saying Grand Swiss points or something like that. That's a
FIDE
Grand
circuit,
Prix points, right?
FIDE circuit.
FIDE circuit. Okay, FIDE circuit. There you
Yeah.
go. In the FIDE
I just
circuit.
want to say, so London Classic was certainly there was some talk at the time. The London Classic was certainly not organized for any player in particular.
Yeah, I don't think
Like
it was
the
either.
London Classic is organized by Malcolm Payne. He's been doing it for years and years. At some point, it was part of the Grand Chess Tour. At some point, I think they like lost funding or they didn't have the money to host it as like a really top level event with like a prize fund, first prize, 100 grand or whatever. Like this money wasn't there at some point.
Hmm.
But for example, in 2019 was the last time it was organized. Maybe COVID interfered with that as well.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly why, but it's been a very legitimate event for many years. And they also do like chess in the schools work. It's like a big organization, right? I mean, you were part of the Grand Chess Tour
Hmm.
during this time as
Oh
well.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. They used to
so
have an open tournament running at the same time. I've actually played that one of the
yeah,
years. Very, very fun event for sure.
yeah, rapid blitz events. It's been like a chess festival for a long time, along with kids events and all that stuff. So they have no favoritism towards players. Maybe they like their local players, right? They like Luke McShane and Mickey
Shreyas
uh,
now. Yeah.
yeah, and the young talent Royal Shreyas and all the other English players. But that's about as far as their favoritism will go. They certainly don't have any reason to. I mean, and certainly there was nothing fixed as we saw, but
Oh, of
it
course
was
not.
also clear
Yeah.
before any results came in.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. I think the same can be said about the Chennai tournament.
Which is
Uh,
interesting because you actually told me about it during our last podcast. You told me there will be an Indian tournament. I had no idea that there will be an Indian tournament. And I think a couple of days later, it was Tarjay who mentioned it on his Twitter and it became public. The information became public. When did you know about this tournament being planned? How long in advance?
I think it was like during the rest day of the Singfield Cup.
Okay.
One of the rest days, because I had two rest days. Remember, one was because I was playing Duda, and one was the official rest day. So I don't know which one it was.
Yeah.
But one of those days, I found out about the event, and I found out about all the players who were playing there. So Parham and the Indian players Arjun and Gukesh. Of course, this event was organized. You could say to give Arjun and Gukesh a chance. On the other hand, it might have simply been that they saw an opportunity to, besides giving their players a chance at qualifying for candidates, also to organize a high level event, and perhaps without having to invest as much money because there's some extra incentive for the players.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's a reason, but it could be one of the reasons. Like I don't know what they invested. I don't know how much money the prizes were, the starting fees, all that. I have no idea. Um,
I
I wasn't
also
invited as well. I heard some players were invited, like Anish, like Hikaru. I heard. I'm not sure if that's the case, but
Wesley
I
got
wasn't
invited.
invited. Yeah, which I feel a little bit left out. Like they invited Wesley, Hikaru. They invited. They invited pretty much all the American players. I think Lenier was invited. Lavon obviously was invited since he played. Uh, where's my invite?
I think you're too expensive. No, but it makes
No,
sense, right? It's very easy for them to incentivize potential sponsors. Hey, look, we're organizing this event. We can have Gukesh and Erigaisi, give them a fair shot at potentially making the candidates. And I have to say, I mean, this is an absolutely historical year for Indian chess. They have how many? 3 Indians right now, and they're just about to potentially get their 4th Indian. I mean, that's
wait.
so.
You
Who
mean
do
in
we
the
have
candidate?
in the candidates?
No. So there's currently two who are confirmed for candidates. Those two
Prague
are and Pragnanta.
and Vidit. Yes.
And Gukesh is the current, like if it ended right now, Gukesh would be the third.
Okay, so 2 Indians and potentially getting a third one.
Very
And
likely getting the third, but it's not confirmed, so we can't say
not
that
yet.
Gukesh.
Not yet.
Still, Arjun and Anish have a shot, but they have to do very well in their next event.
Let's speak about that, in fact. So let's start with Arjun. What does he have to do to potentially make it to the candidates? And this would surpass Gukesh, right? If he wins this one. If he does what he has to do.
So the first thing is that Gukesh has his fate in his own hands. He can, of course, play the World Rapid and Blitz, the last event of the year, and he can, for example, win one of the events. And I think that just ends it. But if he doesn't win one of the events, or let's say he doesn't go for some reason, then I think what has to happen is that Anish has to either win the Blitz event, which is a very, very outside shot because he can't get second. He can't get third. He has to win.
Yeah.
So
does he have to win it outright?
I believe so, yeah.
Because I guess that's kind of an important.
But I think that like
as well.
you either win it or not. There's a tiebreak after, so he either gets first or second if he ties. And second doesn't cut it for Anish. Or for Arjun, I think it actually doesn't matter. He can't, like Arjun can't do it in the Blitz. Arjun has to do it in the Rapid.
Yes. So Arjun has to do it in the Rapid because that gives the player 21.32 points. That's what Arjun needs. At the same time, it seems like needs 13.53 to pass Gukesh.
Yeah. So winning the Blitz would do it for Anish.
15.99.
He has to win the Blitz World Championship. It's like, I think the chance is like 0.5%, if that, for him. I mean, no offense to Anish, but it's a very low percentage that he wins Blitz. Now, in the Rapid, he has a much better chance. He can get top 3.
Yes.
I don't know what his percent is for top 3, but it's certainly much higher than Blitz. So basically, Rapid is where he has a chance.
Okay, I'll ask you a question. Magnus just tweeted, and he said, I have no horse in this race, but in my opinion, very interesting opinion in my consideration, the World Blitz is much harder to win because there's more rounds and should therefore give more circuit points than World Rapid despite the shorter time control. So it's, I guess the question is the battle between the short time control, which generally issues less points. Like whenever we play Classical, you have the Bilbao scoring system. You get 3 points for a win in Classical, and then you get 1 point, 2 points for a win in Rapid and Blitz. And sometimes in some events, we just had one in St. Louis, the Winter Chess Classic, you were getting 2 points in Rapid and only 1 point for a victory in the Blitz section. So always there's been this bias towards longer time controls gives you more points. But right now, what Magnus is saying is that we should take into consideration the amount of rounds as well. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think he's correct that Blitz is harder to win than Rapid. I would say that's probably true, although I don't know if there's a way to measure that. I mean, it also depends on your comfort levels in Blitz or Rapid, and depends on a lot of things. So he's looking at it probably from his perspective as well. So I think that can be argued. That's the first thing. The second thing is that the FIDE circuit has nothing to do with someone's view of how difficult an event is. For example, getting +2, I would say getting +2 in like Bucharest Grand Chess Tour event is far easier. That's what I did. I got +2 to win the tournament, right? Is far easier than getting 1, 2, 3 in the Rapid World Championship. It's also far easier than winning, for example, the Grand Chess Tour event in, let's say, in Poland, where Magnus won.
One of the Rapid events, Rapid Blitz events.
I would say that it's harder. That's also my personal opinion. It might be easier for some players, right? Maybe for Magnus, it's easier to win in Poland than to win in Bucharest. But Rapid is weighted less. So if Rapid is weighted less, then it stands to reason that Blitz is weighted less. And also, since the candidate is about as far from Blitz as you can get, there's absolutely no Blitz involved. And the World Championship also, I mean, well, I guess there's Blitz involved eventually, but basically there's no Blitz involved at all. Then, like, why would this be weighted so highly? I understand it's a super difficult event and you have to be a strong player to win it, but that's just how the system is.
Yeah, you make a very good point.
We can definitely argue with the system. Like, I don't think the system is very good with the FIDE circuit. I just don't think it's very good. Having thought about it, but that's how it is. It doesn't make sense that they would suddenly weigh the Blitz event super highly while, like, for example, you win, like, let's say you won the Poland Grand Chess Tour event and you won the what was it, Croatia Grand Chess Tour event. Let's just see what points those events gave, because we can actually see what Magnus.
I think it was 14 points, if I'm not mistaken. 14 something.
Yeah. So here's Magnus. Where is he? Yeah, he got. Wait. Why isn't it listed for him? Didn't he play those events?
He did. Of course he did. He won 9 out of 9 in Croatia. Or Poland, I don't remember exactly.
Wait, but those events count, no? Why wouldn't those? Why those? I see his like listing is Weikensee 20 points, Stavanger 0 points, World Cup 29.73 points, Doha 0 points, and Toronto 14.63 points. Why would those events not be listed?
Maybe they counted less. I don't know. Yeah, this is a bit strange.
No, but it can't.
I'm pretty sure those events were counting.
Well, let's see. There's one other player who played. Like, who else played in those events? Well, I played, but it's not listed for me because those were not my best event. Well, actually, I only played the
It is. GCT Super United Rapid and Blitz Croatia. You got 4th place and you got 8 points.
Yeah, but what about for Magnus? How much did he get?
That's a good question. By the way, where do you see Magnus? Because I don't actually see Magnus. So in the leaderboard right now, I don't see
I was
Magnus.
checking Wikipedia.
No, I don't think Magnus was actually considered for that.
No, but they show all the players. For example, they show Jan here.
Okay, now I see Magnus. Okay, I'll tell you how much he got. I see it. 2023 GCT Superbet Chess Poland Rapid and Blitz. First place, 12.73 points. Which is less.
Why is this not valid?
I don't know.
Why is this not a valid event?
which is actually less than in Croatia. In Croatia, he got 13.47 points because the rating average was a bit higher.
Yeah. Okay. And for example, Champions Chess Tour, he got 14.63 points. Now, I have no idea why two of those events are not valid. Why does it say that the GCT, Superbet, Chess, Poland, Rapid Blitz is not valid, but the Champions Chess Tour Finals is valid?
Yeah, not sure. We're getting
That
into
doesn't
the
make much
weeds
sense.
of FIDE.
Okay, so it doesn't actually matter for him because he qualified through another method. But like, I don't really understand why it says not valid for that because those are valid events.
Yes. Yes.
Like all
Maybe you
it,
guys,
so it
maybe
normally
people
says
can
not
help
valid.
us.
It normally says not valid if like you've achieved a better result, but he hasn't achieved a better result in another tournament.
Hmm.
So for example, for me, I got 12.55 in St. Louis Rapid Blitz. Now I would argue that that result, winning that tournament, is more difficult to win that tournament than to, for example, get whatever fifth, sixth place tied in Tata Steel Masters, which is what I also did,
Hmm.
which is the same amount of points, 12.15, basically same. Um, Now
Very,
I would say
very more skewed.
Rapid and Blitz, first place, more impressive than fifth, sixth tied in Tata Steel. But according to their system, they weigh classical more highly, so Tata Steel is weighed the same, gets the same points.
No, and they
Anyway,
probably thought along the lines that you mentioned as well. The cycle is very much skewed towards classical time controls, so classical time controls should be weighted way heavier than rapid and blitz. I guess this is their train of thought, which makes sense to my eyes, I guess.
yeah, it's logical. I just think that the system in general, the FIDE circuit, it's not a very good system.
Mm.
The reason why I think that mainly it's not a good system is because if you play these Grand Chess Tour events, which first of all, I want to clear something up. They're not by invitation. They're actually by qualification.
Hmm.
So people always say that if you're invited, they actually have a qualifying, like you qualify by rating, you qualify by top three previous year, you qualify by, and then they have some wild cards that they give out. But most people qualify, they don't get invited, which is
Hmm.
why, for example, we had this talk with Maxime, and he spoke about like the importance of, um, or actually, I don't remember if it was in the podcast that we did or, um, this is, by the way, a podcast just for our viewers that hasn't gone out yet, but it will go out. Or maybe it was like a private conversation I had with him. But anyway, he stressed the importance of qualifying. So he's thinking about qualifying because he doesn't get an invite there. So he has to find a method to qualify for Grand Chess Tour events because they're quite lucrative,
Hmm.
quite good
Hmm.
events. Very so that's one thing. This is not by invitation, but if you qualify for those events, it gives you a pretty substantial advantage in the FIDE circuit because basically if you score +1 at one of those events, you get like 15, 17 grand FIDE circuit points,
Hmm. Hmm.
which is the same as winning the Blitz World Championship.
Yes.
It's the same
Crazy.
as getting
Crazy.
it's a huge thing.
Crazy. Yes.
So these events are enormously valuable. If you win one of them, you get like 25, 27 points. I mean, it's extremely valuable.
Yes.
Um, to get something similar, you like, okay, Norway Chess is another example. Winning Norway Chess. It's very good to have these events. So the FIDE circuit, I think, is rewarding certain events too highly. And by certain events, I mean closed round robins, where of course it's difficult to win, but it's not too difficult if you're a very strong player, like let's say Wesley, to
Hmm.
score a small plus, which maybe you don't win, but you rack up the FIDE circuit points. If, for example, Anish had just scored +1 in the last Singfield Cup, he probably would qualify for the candidates, but
Yes.
he didn't. So okay, it's not super easy to score +1, but still. Um, that's why I don't think like this India tournament was so unusual that they organized it. I mean, Anish, Wesley, these players played a lot of these Grand Chess Tour events. Now, you can argue that, okay, this was organized last minute, but what's the difference really? I mean, if it's a legitimate event where the players are motivated to play well, and I can guarantee that players like Parham, like Levon, like Predke, Sugirov, all these players that played, besides of course, the Indian guys who obviously are motivated. Um, like they're not there for fun. They're there to improve their rating, to score highly, to get a prize. Um, Now, if it was only local players and much lower rated, I understand. Then it starts to get a bit iffy. Maybe still, FIDE should have thought about, um, because now it's too late, but maybe they should have thought about putting in a provision where tournaments have to be announced like 3 months before. But that's on FIDE. I think that this Chennai event was totally normal. I didn't see anything weird about it.
Yep.
Anyway, that's about it for that.
That I definitely agree with you in that regard. Absolutely nothing wrong with the Chennai tournament. It seemed very valid. Lot of very strong players. It wasn't anybody, retired or anything of that nature. Both Gukesh and Erigaisi were given a chance, and Gukesh, and by the way, they won. They tied for first, but obviously this wasn't enough for Erigaisi. It was enough for Gukesh to take the lead in the Grand Prix points, the FIDE circuit. Now, let's get to the next thing that changed. Wesley was chilling. Wesley was hanging around in Toronto, having a good time, thinking that he's safe. He refused participation in this event in India for good reason. I mean, Toronto is extremely lucrative, and it was extremely lucrative for him. He made 100K, not bad. Good job, Wesley. But the problem is that after the Sinquefield Cup, Alireza apparently started organizing an interesting tournament that, in fact, has not finished yet in France, in his hometown, organized, I believe, by the political circles around it, the mayor, if I'm not mistaken. He organized this tournament and basically called out some 2,500 retired, more or less, grandmasters to play Alireza. Alireza is on 5 out of 5. Right now, he's, as the moment of this recording, he is qualified if he decides to withdraw from the tournament. And he still has one game tomorrow against Fedorchuk. He needs to win, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think he can draw. So he needs to win.
I think you're right. I think he needs to win.
He needs to win that one. Now, he has the option of withdrawing. I actually have no idea what has happened, whether he has decided on that or not. But this is the big question. This is a big one, right? Because, I mean, organized event in the last moment against some retired GMs in which you need to score high. Anybody can do that. There's some questions about it. What do you think about this one?
Okay, well, to start with, I think that if he were to not play the next game against Fedorchuk, as in not complete the tournament, I actually think that it's pretty clear FIDE should not be rating this event.
Interesting. Okay.
That's the first thing, because you can't play a tournament where you decide how many games. First you organize it, and then you decide how many games you play based on your requirements. I also thought this was super weird. People were saying if Lenier gains a rating, then he can withdraw halfway. I was like, this shouldn't be allowed, Of course, he should be allowed to play the tournament, but you should have to complete the tournament fully, because it's just you go to a tournament, you go there for a few games. Your aim in a tournament should be to either win the tournament or to get a prize or whatever. It should be a sporting event, and you should be aiming for something within the confines of the tournament. It shouldn't be okay, I'm here to beat a 2,000 player, a 2,100, and then I'll go home and I'll take my whatever 1.6 rating points that I got. Well, to start with, I think that the one rating spot, it was ridiculous from the start. I think I said this to you. I maybe said it publicly as well, but one rating spot should never be FIDE. I mean, how could you possibly think one rating spot is a good idea? But let's go back 1 year before we talk about this one.
Not only one rating spot, but one rating spot of one particular rating list. This is
that's what I meant.
Crazy.
One rating list, not one rating spot. One rating list.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, one rating spot. Okay, one rating spot. If you base it on, let's say, weighted of 6 months, so the more recent ones are weighted more heavily than the than 6 months ago, and you take the average rating, okay, this could be considered, it's going to be much harder to like do any sort of weird stuff if you do this. But one rating list is absurd.
I agree.
Uh,
Completely
yeah,
agree.
it's like it was clear from the beginning, and maybe I was making some jokes. I actually at some point didn't care because I qualified through the World Cup. So if people want to organize some tournaments, it's really not like it doesn't affect me anymore, you know? I still don't think it should be done, but it doesn't affect me, so I'm not going to launch some. Actually, okay, let's go back 1 year because I'm not going to say I won't lodge an official complaint. So, um, 2022 candidates 1 year ago, last cycle. Uh, so if we start with Russia invaded Ukraine
Hmm. Hmm.
um, and started a war.
Hmm.
And after this, Karyakin expressed his support publicly, but also in a way that not only was it public, but it was very distasteful,
Hmm.
uh, to put it mildly, right? He said some things online that were really really bad, no matter how you view things.
No
I
matter which
I, I
side
think
you're
that
on, yes, this was really bad. Very
no, I
insensitive.
mean it's not even about sides. It's just that
Very insensitive.
uh,
Yes.
it's like even if you're, let's say, wrong on an issue, there's ways to be wrong, but still like people can understand where you're coming from somewhat, or there's ways to be wrong, but also it's like in a really you do in a really bad fashion.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's not important, but the what happened was he was he was excluded from the candidates for this. So there was an ethics committee hearing, whatever. I don't know the details, but he was banned from playing. So he couldn't. He was qualified for the candidates by getting second place in the 2021 World Cup. So he's out of the candidates, and this opens up one rating list spot. Now the second highest rated player in the world at the time was Ding Liren. Magnus Carlsen was first, but Magnus was world champion. He was not going to play the candidates. So now Ding was the rating spot favorite because after Karyakin was disqualified, the rating spot opened up. So Ding would make it, right?
Yes.
Well, Ding had not played enough games. He had actually played like no games, so he was not eligible. Uh, and now what happened next was that a bunch of local matches, you can call them matches, I guess, were organized. Basically, he played 4 games against 3 players. So it was a 4-player quadruple round robin. And the results were interesting of this tournament. Ding scored 3.5 against all the players, and all the players drew against each other.
Hmm.
So we had
Hmm.
this very interesting table um, where they all score half a point against him, and then they all score 2 points against each other with all draws, which is an unusual result. And basically, it was he needed to play his 28 games or whatever the requirement was. I think 28. He played his 28 games. He maintained his rating of 28-12, whatever it was, doesn't matter. It was enough to qualify, and he went to the candidates, and the rest was history.
Talk about
And
a butterfly effect.
yeah, yeah, and then he played the candidates. He got second place. He qualified for the world championship. He won the world championship, and he's the world champion. But everything that happened after that is kind of not very relevant for this discussion. It's just that there was a series of tournaments or matches, whatever, that was organized locally for one rating spot, which Ding qualified by. And people didn't really have a problem with it at the time because Ding was number 2 in the world, and
Hmm.
all he did was play the amount of games he needed to. Now, I think that this is a fundamental misunderstanding of what the rating actually is, because rating is not a number that you achieve once and you have it forever. Kasparov is 28-12. He hasn't played for 18 years, yeah. But he's 28-12. Now, we understand he's not 28-12 level. And after Ding started to play actively, he lost 30 points,
Hmm.
which can happen.
Hmm.
Like when I also at some point lost uh, like 70 points. I mean, it can happen.
Hmm.
If you don't play, you can't lose rating. So I don't see the difference between those events and what's happening now, because even though he kept his rating, he didn't increase it. Still, we have a series of events played locally against weaker players. And you can argue about the legitimacy of the games or the results or whatever, but uh, it's clear that this should not be how a candidate spot is decided. So why would they decide not a bad idea to have the exact same system where you can play events last minute for one rating list and boost your rating or whatever it is, and then people will always ask questions about it, whether it's legitimate or not. We don't know, right? I have no idea about the legitimacy of the tournament that Ding played. I wasn't there.
Yes.
But it still shouldn't be. You shouldn't qualify like that.
Yeah.
It should. The system should not allow it. It's not that the players. Well, okay, I wouldn't do it personally, even if the system allowed it. But the players, it shouldn't be up to the players. The system should not be in place that you can play last minute events for one rating list. I don't see the difference. People say there's a difference because Ding had the rating, but you have to risk your rating. You can't just keep your rating forever and say, well, I'm playing my events. I mean, I have my rating. I'm not losing it. I'm not gaining it. Let's say I achieve my 28 whatever level, and I never play another game except I play some 2400s in my local club or 2500s, and I draw a few games, I win a few, and I keep my rating forever. And people go, well, yeah, he's just maintaining his rating. I mean, what difference does it make if you're maintaining or you're gaining? The aim of the tournament is to qualify by rating, and so you should be playing in competitive events. And by competitive, I mean players who are motivated to beat you, players who want to beat you. That's the whole point.
There has to be some changes because, and you made a very good point. It's the system. It's not the player in this case. You said that you wouldn't do this, but, Wesley can wake up tomorrow and be like, I'm organizing my own event right now in the United States with some players, some local players in St. Louis, let's say, or wherever he is right now. And that's how I'm going to try to qualify. I mean, the end goal is extremely, extremely important, right? You're qualifying to the candidates. Not only that you make a guaranteed amount of money, but you also have a shot at, the highest prize in chess, the World Championship title, which by itself, it's at least $500,000, probably more. Usually in the last few years, it's been more than that. So maybe $1 million, right? You're making a lot of money, right? By itself. Not only that, but you're also having a shot at the World Championship title. The incentives are clear. It has to be the system that changes because, maybe you say that you wouldn't do it, but Alireza, obviously, he decided to do it. And I don't blame him, to be honest. I mean, the games, we're not going to talk about the games necessarily, even though I think they're very much legit. I just think the players that he chose, let's say, are the perfect players to play against when you want to win some rating points. But the games, I think they're legit. At the same time, you're in Fedorchuk's shoes. You're playing for a very specific reason in that tournament, so Alireza can make it to the candidates. There's some pressure attached to that as well. You're a local player. You've been maybe living in France for a while. You understand what I'm saying. There are some pressures attached to it. There's some strings attached to it as well. It's just a very strange event. The system is broken.
Well, it's such an easy fix of the system.
How would you do it?
I thought at the same time, imagine that. Let's say that nothing under the table is happening. Let's say that the local organizer, whoever it may be, let's say in the case of Ding or in the case of Alireza now. By the way, I don't know if Alireza has any. Maybe they just said we're organizing these matches. Do you want to play? And he was like, sure. Maybe he's not involved with organization at all. Maybe he has no info or detail.
I think the details are that immediately after the Sinquefield Cup ended, he contacted some organizers. He himself contacted some organizers to try to get something going.
Okay, yeah, I didn't hear about that, but yeah, sure, that could be the case as well. But it's not really relevant, I think. I mean, it's kind of relevant, but it's not really relevant because it's more about the system in place. It's that you you need to play players who are motivated to beat you. And the least motivated people are going to be the ones who are invited to this event, which has one clear goal, which is um, to get this player to the candidates. Now, I think it's different in Chennai because there's other goals. Like these are professional players who want to increase their rating, and there were some prizes, I believe, involved. So they were actually fighting for money.
Mm-hmm.
And now you get some guys like these grandmasters who are who Alireza is playing. They have no motivation because first of all, they don't care about their rating. I mean, like whether the rating is 2540 or
No,
2520,
they don't care about the
it
rating.
actually doesn't matter to them. I mean, they're not getting any invitations with this rating. Or 2439. I think one player is 2449. Like, what's the difference for them? Doesn't really matter. The other thing is, I'm pretty sure they're not playing for prizes like these mini matches. I don't think that it's like you win, you get a prize, you lose,
No,
you
they
don't get a
probably
prize. Because
have like
obviously,
an appearance fee situation. And we're
yeah.
speculating at this point, but I would assume they just have like an appearance fee type of
Well, probably they're
structure.
not going there for nothing, right? But
Yeah,
they're
of
probably
course
also
not.
not playing for prizes because Alireza is obviously going to win this match. So there's no point to a prize. Like he's going to beat a 2439 in the match. It's like very obvious. So they're playing probably for an appearance fee, but this is almost like a quid pro quo. I mean, it's like you're getting a starting fee to show up, but your result it's not dependent on your result. But the whole point is that this player beats you. Now, maybe they don't say you need to lose, but um, it's sort of clear that they're being invited as punching bags, which and they're being invited as punching bags. Probably we don't know for what, but I guess for money, right? Like what else? What other reason are they going to be there for?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very shady territory, even assuming that there's nothing under the table, which I do assume. I think it's pretty clear that you invite these guys and Alireza just shows up at the board and just wipes the floor with them because he's so much stronger and because they actually don't care about winning or losing
Yeah.
or drawing.
Yeah.
And yeah, but the thing is, the system should just not allow it. Like, there's a few ways around this, and I think the easiest ones are that if you want to decide a spot based on rating, instead of rating, you make it performance over the last year. So this means that it doesn't matter what you started out at the beginning of the year, and it doesn't matter what you end at the end of the year. It just means that over the year, your performance is what will qualify you. Now, you could still, of course, prearrange performance potentially or try to boost it up by beating weaker players. So you have a minimum rating average. Let's say that rating average is 2,600. I don't know what it should be, but let's just say. Now, nobody is going to and let's say there's a minimum amount of games. Let's say 40 games or 50 games. So you have to play at least 40 to 50 games, whatever you think is best, against 2,600 players or more. Now, I don't think that there's ways really to game the system too much, unless you actually just prearrange games, which is always possible, right? You can always do illegal stuff.
Yes.
But you would probably have to, you can't protect against that. Also, it's possible to go to a closed tournament and just start offering money to people. To lose
now
games.
now we're basically getting into illegal stuff territory.
Yeah, I'm
you
saying
can
that
get
you can't really
charged
protect against that.
legally for that. Yes.
Yeah, if someone wants to take that risk that they get caught doing that, or if they're really that unethical that they're willing to offer money to lose to win
of
games.
Course, you can win. You can use steroids basically if you want.
Or you can just cheat with
you
the
can
computer.
fix matches. This was the case in a lot of sports very often actually. But let's assume no illegal stuff happening.
Yeah, let's assume not, because of course that could also happen in, let's say, Grand Prix event or Grand Swiss event. This can always be a risk, but that's not the question now. The question is, what's the system, not how do we eliminate match fixing? Because we're assuming no match fixing. Assuming no match fixing, you can't really choose your opponents in the system, because if you choose all 2,600 players, well, it actually turns out the 2,600 players are really tough, and getting let's say a 2,800 performance against 50 2,600s is going to be really tough.
Mm-hmm.
And you also have to have an amount of activity, so you can't be inactive. Probably, and what would happen this year if we had the system is the highest performances are, I think I'm top, Hikaru, Magnus, all players who would qualify anyway by different means. Like Hikaru through Grand Swiss, I qualified through World Cup, Magnus through World Cup, through Rating, and so on. Uh, Magnus obviously not playing, as far as he said. And then after that, it would be Lenier, it would be Wesley. I think Lenier would not be active enough. Wesley would be, so it would be Wesley, then probably like Anish, Magsudlu, like players who had very good years. Uh, and like, what would be the problem with the system? Would anyone complain if by average performance rating, let's say it was me, or if not me, it was Hikaru, or if not Hikaru, it was Wesley? Like, it'd be totally normal. I mean, all these players had pretty good years.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Wesley Wesley was solid. I mean, not spectacular, but uh, like by his standards, maybe not the most spectacular year, but pretty solid.
Yeah.
And yeah, like what's the big deal? I don't see a huge issue with the system. Maybe there would be, but it could always be tweaked a little bit to be. It's definitely not the kind of issue that you see with one rating list where people just start. Like imagine, as you said, Wesley now arranges a few games in St. Louis with some guys who are like 2,400, or not St. Louis. I don't want to say St. Louis, but in some city, it doesn't matter where in the U.S. with some American 2,400s, and then suddenly some other player comes out. Like Anish also has a chance. Anish organizes a quadruple round robin tournament last minute, and you just have a circus. It's just like a pure circus.
Yeah.
So of course you don't want this. Like the system is broken, but it's not broken in a way where like it's difficult to fix. It's actually very easy to fix. You just don't do one list. You do something else.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Anyway,
I think you hit a nail on the head. Definitely covered pretty much everything. Good luck at the Rapid and Blitz. We're not going to be discussing that too much right now because there's not that much to discuss. I also need to bounce. We're doing this during my lunch break. We're doing a camp before the Pan Americans collegiate chess event, very important for my university. So I'm going to get back to my students, and I'm going to let you go. Get ready tomorrow. You're traveling to Samarkand. Very intriguing event. I cannot wait to watch it, and I'm sure we'll be discussing it after it happens. But you already mentioned it. We have a big podcast with MVL coming. I'm not 100% sure when, but we have that content coming up. We have another very special guest. I think maybe we'll release it later on social media, so make sure you follow us on social media. But definitely, I think you guys will enjoy that as well. A lot of interesting content, and a very exciting end of the year lies ahead. I have a feeling this whole drama has not finished yet. Something is going to happen. I have a feeling something is going to happen in the next 10 days or so. So anyway, excited for that. I'm going to let you go. Cheers, guys. If you guys want to support us, don't forget we do have a merch store. I'm drinking my coffee from our mug right now, as you can see it on camera. That's only one of the mugs that we have. We have plenty more. We have t-shirts, we have hoodies, we have a bunch of stuff, and I think the designs speak for themselves. So definitely go check it out. Follow the World Rapid and Blitz. We'll be around. See you guys. Cheers.
See you guys.